So in the interest of letting John get to his train, we will start with the Board of Finance. So let me call this regular meeting of the Operations Planning Committee for Wednesday, February 26th to order. John, good morning.
Thank you, Jamie. Good morning. Not a huge amount to report from the Board of Finance. A few things that we're working on right now. So as I mentioned at the last OPC meeting, there's a There's an effort underway to help clarify policies and procedures with regard to the town treasurer. And so Joan, our town treasurer, was at the Board of Finance meeting last night where she discussed various aspects of that. And so we're working through the codification of the Board of Finance's role with regard to that. Jamie initiated an effort to get clarity from town council as to exactly what the parameters for that relationship should be. And town council delivered an opinion on that to Jamie, which I've circulated to the rest of the Board of Finance so that they have that, and we'll use that as a platform to articulate a smart way for us to do that, that both fulfills the Board of Finance's responsibility, but works in a complementary way with both Joan and the town staff that help her. So more to come on that. We'll have an active discussion of those proposals at the Board of Finance meeting in March. In terms of other items that we're working on, the budget process gets formally into the Board of Finance's hand next week when we receive the budgets from the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Education next Tuesday. So we have already formalized our budget assignments. We've set up our usual collaboration with Jack Davis and F&B, so we'll pair off with those guys and go through our inquiries concurrently. In addition, we'll continue to follow the procedure that we set up last year, which is that we'll do our own analysis along with F&B. We'll go first to Kate for any town budget questions, barring any issues. That really should be the end of it, but if there's further inquiry needed, we would go to town department heads directly. Last year, our experience was that worked really well. We got the answers that we needed, and that further discussion with other departments ended up not being necessary. I can envision, though, a couple of discussions that we'd have in any case, likely with the police department and with the library, just given the size of those budgets. And of course, if we've got questions, the Board of Education will go directly to Tara about those. So more to come, but our process will kick off right after we receive those budgets next week. There is the school tours meeting, which we do every year. That's Saturday, the 14th of March, and that's at 8 o'clock, where town officials will gather, and certainly the members of the Board of Finance, to take a look at the capital projects for the Board of Ed, and that's always...
I love it. You're doing it this year. It's all John. He'll lead everyone around.
You know, it's just going to be fantastic. So anyway, a
Such a treat.
Cold spring morning at 7:45, 8 o'clock, as long as there's enough
There's
coffee.
usually a little coffee.
Typically, I get through that without difficulty. So, but it's always an informative tour to see that and frankly hear from Mike Lange, who I think is a genius about all this stuff, but I always learn something from him. Quick financial update. So we remain on track for the year. We have collected north of 98% of the property taxes for the year, and that collection rate compares
Right
very
on the
favorably
money.
with what we've had previously. So we're in good shape there. Building permit revenue is starting to come in for the major projects since they've started demolition. So we're obviously not finished collecting all that, but that's something we've been waiting to see come online for a while. So that's good, and it's frankly good just to see those projects kind of start to get underway. I know Jamie's talked about that a few times. And as you said in the bicentennial celebration comments, it's just going to be transformative. And when you look at these plans, it's going to be amazing when all this stuff gets finished. It will be less than amazing while it's being built, but amazing when it's finished. So again, more to come on that. I guess my last comment would be around the Oxbridge Building Committee. That process continues to move forward with alacrity. We had some design development workshops that were held earlier this month, which have clarified a number of things. The work continues with regard to coordination in the school board comments and efforts on that. I think it's been, Alan Adley has been part of those meetings that we've had every morning, or when we have them in the morning. I think having him there has been extremely effective. He's very tied into this process, and there's good communication between the administration and that board, so I feel pretty good about that process. One thing to note is March 5th, there's going to be a public presentation on all that, so that to give members of the public an update as to how that process is proceeding. But whether it's the committee itself, the involvement of Allen and the school district, as well as the various third parties that are part of this. I continue to have very high confidence in this process. It's moving along. I think we're all under extremely tight deadlines, but I don't see anything right now that would suggest we'll miss those in any substantial way. So I feel pretty confident about that process. I believe that was all I had, unless anybody had any questions.
Any questions for John?
It's nice to see that we have what seems to me to be a pretty good protocol worked out for doing the budget from F&B, working with the Board of Finance. It's every year it seems to get better, so it's great.
I agree. I think it's great. So,
Steve?
Bravo. Wow, okay. Usually the cleanup bit. What are we working on? We had a meeting last night. I'll get to that into a second. But one of the things that we're working on, and I forget if I mentioned this last time, but the Planning and Zoning Department did a 20-year study of housing in Darien and how much housing's been, multifamily housing effectively has been built over the last 20 years and how much of that is affordable housing and for other uses. We've not, the chart's basically been completed, the study's basically been completed. We're kind of tweaking it a little bit, but eventually I think we want to release it to the public, and Jamie's going to take care of that and maybe comment on it later. Last night we saw for the first time, it was an informal meeting with the building committee and the architects for the Oxford School. There were definitely some concerns about it. But the people there, I think, did a halfway decent job. It's a relatively small site, and it's a relatively big school, and I think it should work. But we may have some comments on it. Our committee was not overly impressed, just so you know. 12 Raymond Street. We do a lot of docks in town. A lot of docks at a lot of houses on Long Neck Point and Holly Pond and all those. We're looking at one now, which is on 12 Raymond Street, which is in the upper portion of 5 Mile River. The river is, I want to guess, it's not, but it's kind of close. It's a river portion. It's maybe 200 feet wide. Because of riparian rights, the river gets cut 50-50. It was originally approved by the 5 Mile River Commission, which is domiciled in Rowayton. They rescinded their approval of it Monday, when I had approved it a week ago. There's a lot of controversy on it because it's a narrow part of the river. So that got kicked back for a while. The state approved it, and they may not approve it, and then the Army Corps of Engineers approved it, and now they're looking at it again. It's a coastal resource that we have, the 5 Mile River. And people are very conscious about it. Next is Jeremy at his own, I guess, initiative, did a memo that was for me and Jamie. It's who it went to now about the 3 projects, the 3 big projects we're talking about, which is Federal, Realty, Palmer's, and Corbin Drive, on what was there. The number of new square footage for commercial, the number of new apartments for apartments, and the number of new parking spaces. It's a 2-page memo that, it's not really a public document, but it's something that's a good tool for us to have when people ask and have talking points and say, what are you doing there? What's the difference between there and after? I think he did a great job on it, and we were always tweaking it with him. He does a really good job, finishes something, and we go, you missed something, now you have to do it again. But that's another way it goes. The other thing I think is important too, both of the 2 major projects in the Heights are under construction. The Cultec units for the Federal project are basically in. That's the underground, what I call underground bathtubs. Those things are at least 12 feet deep. That's going to help with a lot of flooding. I bet you nickel they're not connected yet, but those are already in town. The biggest positive and takeaway from that, and I don't know who really did it or who designed it, we suggested it. Both projects are being managed by the same construction management company, which is AP Construction. So they're talking to each other. I don't know if it's the same, it can't be the same person within the same firm because they're 2 big projects. But with that said, the coordination between the 2 projects and the 2 owners and the 2 developers and the 2 constructors should be very good. That's pretty much what I have for today. I don't know if there's anything else that you guys have for me, but that's me.
I would just say, could maybe get a copy of that memo and make sure it matches what we gave Malone and McBroom for our enrollment study in terms of like apartment space and stuff like that, as we predict, try to predict students and where they might land in the district.
There you go.
I just want to make sure everyone has the same info. And Jeremy's been great in getting us stuff so far, so I'm sure this is all the same.
Good.
Seth, good morning.
Hi. The RTM took a day off. We didn't have any business really to do, formal business. So we didn't have a meeting this month. We have one coming up in March. The Rules Committee, we have the Roden Avenue easements. That'll be I think, one of the key items. In addition, members of the Rules Committee, when we have a light agenda, wanted to have the RTM briefed on various activities which are going on in town. So I asked the people who wanted to talk a lot about activities to list them. I came up with 14. So I sent a memo to the Rules Committee and said, okay, you asked for it, you got it. And so the Rules Committee will have a very interesting discussion to figure out what we really want to have briefed on before the RTM and what we might not need to. There were certain boundary issues with the Board of Education where I think we would pass for the time being unless they came to us through the budget process. But busing, it's just not there for me. I'm sorry.
It's about to be there for me.
I'm just
up
not
next.
quite. So that's what's going on with us. I won't bore you with the 14 items. You know most of them. Many of them are available on Vimeo and a lot of that stuff. But still, there was a sense among the Rules Committee that it's good to have the principals involved stand up and talk about what it is. So we'll see where they come down.
Very good. Thank you. Tara.
Well, we met last night as well, and the architects came
Late.
a little haggard from your meeting to my meeting. We thought they did a fabulous job from kind of our educational standpoint. We've worked a lot with them at this point, so I don't think there are any surprises to the Board of Education. In fact, they saw some opportunities that might only help us educationally. So from our standpoint, it went really well. Diane Boston was there, who's done an amazing job.
She's fantastic.
She's really done great work. Katie Lublin was there. Duke was there as a Board of Ed member, but also him. And Kip was going to come, but I think he hung out with you guys still a little while longer. From our end, in an educational standpoint, the committee's been right on track and quite frankly worked under really tight time pressure. So we're very thankful to that entire committee for rolling up their sleeves. We did pass a budget. It's at 3.4%, which is higher than what we have passed in previous years, but it was the reality of where we were. We did go out with surrounding towns to kind of bid healthcare and find more savings, and we were able to do that. So that was exciting, and certainly goes to shared services models that I think the state is looking for. But we are aware that the budget increase is higher than in previous years, but we feel it's necessary, meets the needs of the children, given kind of our fixed costs, if you will. And I look forward to having a far more robust conversation on that with the Board of Finance sooner than later. We continue to look at transportation. The board is inclined, as we took a sense of the meeting, to bring in a transportation consultant and kind of look at what the situation is with our busing. The policy is about 20 years old, I believe, and so are there any necessary changes? Captain Marone from the police department came and reported back to us. The area most highly in question, the police have found that it is not unsafe for pedestrians to walk on, so that that just informed the board on kind of how to take next steps. But I think the board is committed at this point, certainly to looking at the policy, to bringing in a consultant. Where I will say we probably will need some cooperation or at least conversation with the town is that the scope of that study started to spread, what are our sidewalks, what are our this, and a lot of them were very, very much town infrastructure questions. So I asked the board to kind of refocus on what we do, and then we would maybe talk to the town if we had questions, or if our study helped inform anything, we would certainly pass it over to the town as, this is what our study found, it should be informational for you. So that conversation will continue, and I'll try to keep it on school zones, but I do think it's probably, like I said, I think last May, this is probably somewhere where the conversations are gonna overlap, and the best communication we have is probably the best way to solve that problem. The superintendent has indicated to the board, and this goes a little bit to the Norotan easements, some of which we were unaware of, and the construction, that he will put in a bus for that Norotan corridor next year, given construction. We will find a way to do that now within our budget, given our budget vote, and that will be our responsibility to do so. I do not anticipate us coming to either of you with requests regarding that bus. But transportation seems to be an issue, and it could just be changing demographics. It could just be a changing kind of thought process on how we do things. But I imagine this conversation will continue. I imagine it will have ripple effects both financially and collaboratively on how we do things. So stay tuned is probably the best thing I can tell you, because this issue remains a hot topic. And really, besides that, I think we look forward to going through the budget process. F&B has been great. Education has been great. Clara and Jack have been in constant communication. I think we've had one round of questions for the Board of Finance, and our conversation will continue. But, as we look at both the state and the surrounding areas giving more and more responsibilities to schools, this is kind of the reality of where we are. So I do think we are budgeting closely. I think Rich Rudel, if you have not had a chance to look at his monthly financial reports and you're so inclined, is excellent.
He's done a great job, actually.
He's done a really great job. He's super clear. We meet monthly. So if anyone has any financial questions, you can ask me. I can send you Rich's reports, but he really is, he's top notch. So we're lucky to have him in the district.
He's your new finance guy?
He is.
Did he replace, what was the guy name?
Mike Feeney.
Got it.
Yeah, and so we asked him to do monthly
Thank you.
reports to kind of keep everybody abreast, and they're very clear. We're running a little bit of a surplus now, but I would expect that to dwindle. Excess cost, that's the other thing that's up legislatively. Dr. Adley alerted us that there certainly appears to be an idea of changing the formula, so we will start reaching out to legislators to really understand what that means. Certainly there's an ability, the conversation now includes an ability to pay factor, which means towns like Darien would certainly feel that. We don't have a lot of details, so my work after this is to go get some details, and I will come back to you all with them when I have them. That's about all I have.
Can I ask you one question on busing?
Yep.
My wife is very 30,000 foot person,
Mhm.
just looks at the global picture. If I live 1.9 miles from a school and the limit's 2 miles, am I allowed to walk 0.2 miles to go to a bus stop that's 2.1 miles away?
Well, so technically you're not zoned for that bus, and that's part of what created this situation. There were a lot of kids who, when there was spaces on buses, were. But technically so busing. When we staff a bus, because this comes up, and I'll try to do this quickly, we actually fill the space at 120% capacity, because we know that some riders aren't going to be there, someone might be sick. What was happening in certain areas is we were exceeding our max, and so that's not safe to have kids. So certain children were starting to say, you're not on this bus. And I said, well, I've been walking on that bus stop all year. What do you mean I'm not on this bus? So technically, no, you need to be on the bus you're zoned for. Are there people checking them every day? No. Are there kids hopping on buses getting home safely? Yes. But we're reaching a point where we were at max capacity. Because I know there was a lot of conversation, could you just reroute the buses? Your buses aren't full. our buses are full to capacity. That doesn't mean ridership every day is full to capacity, and it would be really hard to plan for that.
It's
You
full
know,
to capacity on paper, you mean?
Yeah, 120%.
Right now, I heard.
So, you know, it depends. My kids have taken the bus all week, right? There are other weeks where they don't. So I
Right.
think that's part of the problem. But yes, if you're at 1.9 and you need to walk to school, you technically are not assigned a bus.
So you're not allowed, you're not supposed to be on a bus. Okay. A second question, which is relates to the Oxford School.
Mhm.
Do you have any kind of percentage of kids that get dropped off in the morning or take a bus in the morning? And my example is, I live by homeschool. You know, I drive by it every day, and if you go by homeschool at a certain time of day, you get stuck in traffic, which happens at every single school. If you ask me, just looking at it from a distance, 50% of the kids get dropped off in the morning. You know, and that's just a 100% guess.
Yeah, I
Do
don't
you
know
know
percentage.
that?
I'm an Oxford parent. I don't think the percentage is that high.
Right, I mean, I'm
Part of
just-
that could be because it's so spread out that there's more buses, so there's more walkers at homes.
Right.
I do know with the architects, they have made that queuing line significantly longer than it currently is. I heard, it was late night last night, Steve. It's significantly longer than it was to try to help with traffic. And again, it's the space we have and the space we're trying to build for. So
Okay.
I think you guys are I can't wait to watch your meeting.
Me too.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I'm happy to coordinate on anything, and I would say that, you know, there could have been work that's been done in town hall. I know there's been work done on, you know, taking an inventory of our sidewalk conditions. So to the extent that anything that we have in-house that can be additive or can eliminate the need to buy that service from your transportation contractor, you know, we should look at that and coordinate, but we're happy
Yeah, I
to
think we
coordinate.
have the sidewalk study from like 5 years ago. If there's anything else updated, I don't have, but if Kate could get it to us. I agree with you, as much as information that we can provide that we
Yeah.
have, so we're not duplicating efforts would be great.
So we definitely have updated data. I know that Ed Gentile had his staff walk our entire sidewalk inventory this fall.
Okay.
So he's in the process of creating a map that shows the inventory and then would overlay what I've asked for, sort of like a conditions report. So we'll make
That'd be
sure that
great.
we share.
Thank you.
Okay, so from my perspective, it's a little bit more quiet these days, generally speaking, and we're looking forward to turning our budget over. We have a very modest decrease in the town's budget this year. It is about $5,000, so it's only 0.01% reduction. I brought up at our Board of Selectmen meeting this past Monday that as we are beginning to feel the first waves of redevelopment, and now with the proposed new redevelopment of the Darien Playhouse, I think it's called the Commons, you said?
No, that's,
Oh.
the federal is called the Commons.
Got it.
The Darien Playhouse is called, I forget.
Anyway, it's 1077 Post Road.
Great.
So it's brought up for some other downtown retailers' concerns over downtown parking. And I know that that's something the Planning and Zoning Commission is going to look at, because with the change of use, you can understand that, you know, movies need parking at night, and if it's changed to other uses that are more intensive during the day, there are some concerns that parking might be an issue. But hopefully the public probably doesn't understand that, but it's good for us to clarify that the parking lot behind the Playhouse is shared by the property owners of the Darien Sport Shop and Webster Bank. There's a shared parking agreement that exists with those three property owners. So, you know, they've had to do some things they hadn't done in the past, look to move commuters that might have been squatting in that parking lot out so that they can maximize their own parking. It's private property, so it's not property that we can go on as a town and enforce. But we will be looking at things that we can do to help continue to manage downtown parking, and one of those is to come up with a wayfinding plan for municipal parking. That's an easy thing that we can plan for, better signage to direct people to town-managed municipal parking, so we're going to be looking into that. The Royal, the Darien Housing Authority Senior Affordable Housing Project on the Post Road. The wait list for the Royal should be opening around March 16th, thereabouts, when they will be accepting, I think it's 200 applications for potential residency in the Royal. Steve mentioned the great work by Jeremy Ginsberg putting together a housing analysis. I imagine that this housing analysis will actually be the foundation for the state-mandated affordable housing plan that we need to prepare in the coming year. But the big takeaway, not to steal the thunder of the press release, but I think that we should all be very proud of the work we've done in housing since on or about the year 2000. Of all the housing units developed in Darien, 31% of those are affordable. So it far exceeds the state's mandate, so we should all feel very good about that. The easements that the RTM will be addressing, there'll be 7 of them.
Yes.
That's, when you start to think about why does it take so long to do infrastructure projects? Well, this is exactly why. There are 7 property owners that we had to negotiate temporary and or permanent easements in order to be able to do that intersection reconstruction project.
I must have missed something on this. What easements were we talking about?
Property easements.
I know.
To be able to widen the road?
At Norotan West?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So we approved those at our Board of Selectmen meeting on Monday night. The good news is that intersection improvement project, not only will it include 2 new left turn lanes, which will really help to move traffic through that intersection, it's also going to include enhanced pedestrian safety mechanics. The countdown man, that we don't really have any of those in town.
Crossing lights,
This
and
is
you
going to
mean,
be the
yeah.
first of its kind. There are new requirements that the state has to make sure that those are included. So this will be the template for then what will be the next intersection improvement project at Norotan Avenue and Ledge. That project is stalled a little bit because there's some property issues along Ledge Road that need to be worked out with Connecticut DOT, but Jeremy and Ed are working very hard on that. And I think everybody has covered all the other things that we're working on. I guess I'll just maybe flag that we are in the process of collaborating with the town of New Canaan and the city of Stamford to do a watershed study for the Norotan River, which will be an excellent collaborative project to help determine water quality in that watershed and things that we all can do, the 3 towns, to improve the water quality in that watershed, and therefore help improve the water quality of Long Island Sound. So I think that's it for me today, unless you have any questions. Okay, hearing none, then we have meeting minutes of January 15th.
We got these? We never voted on these, right? I just have it twice?
The first one I left out Terry by mistake.
Okay.
So I had to redo it and add, Terry wanted to know why she was left out, because that would just be a big mistake.
Oh,
Nothing personal.
If you could indulge me for one more comment, because I note that I talked about it in my last meeting. The Pear Tree Beach building project continues to move forward at a slower pace. If you haven't had a chance to see the presentation at their last meeting where the coastal engineers came and presented scenarios that would include the impacts of sea level rise on that particular parcel of land, and began to talk about ways that we can make that town beach park more resilient to sea level rise. It's a really important conversation, and I'm very pleased that we're now at the place where that information has been delivered. And that should serve as the basis for their work going forward on whatever they're going to recommend. Improvements to the parking lot, which may include raising the parking lot, improvements to the boat ramp, and then improvements to the building facility itself. I'll entertain a motion to approve the January 15th meeting minutes if there's no amendments.
So moved. Excuse me.
Second?
Steve, all those in favor? Great. Okay, and then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, I think Tara moved.
Yep.
That's okay.
And Seth seconded. All right,
Yep.
all those in favor? Great. Thank you very much. Have a good day.